Yeah, feeling good on a Wednesday.
Hey everyone, how's it going? We're here still recording on, well, I guess it's now February 8th.
Sure.
Yeah, we always go along with these recording sessions. We already talked some basketball, so now we want to go in a completely different direction, but still timely, like the All-Star Game. And we wanted to talk, Oscars and our favorite films from this year, and also just stuff we like in general. Sort of a non-sports podcast for the most part.
Jane, gold all in my chain, gold all in my ring, gold all in my watch. Don't believe me, just watch.
Yeah, switch it up a little bit. So, when are the Oscars again? Are they like February 22nd? Yeah,
Yep.
that's right.
Yeah.
So that's coming up in a little bit, about 2 weeks. I guess we're gonna go over each of the categories, or the categories worth going over. We're not gonna go down to the
Best short foreign film, animated.
the best animated.
Don't forget best original score.
Yeah. So we're going to go through the important nominations. Pick which ones we liked, talk about those a little bit, and then I guess pick who we think we should win, and who probably will win.
And once again, we have Rahul here with us for the second part of this pod. So you want to just dive right into it?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so
want to start with?
we'll start with Best Picture. We got American Sniper, Birdman, Boyhood, Grand Budapest, Imitation Game, Selma, Theory of Everything, and Whiplash.
There's that many nominees.
Yeah, they expanded a couple years back.
Yeah, like at some point, people got upset that they felt some great movies were being snubbed, and so they expanded the Best Picture field.
So it's kind of like giving trophies to everyone in the 7-year-old soccer league.
Yeah.
Just like any movie that's like... Because how many movies is that? It's like 9.
It's rougher in weaker years when by the time you get to movies like 8 and 9, they're like not that great. But looking at this list right here, this is a perfectly fine group of movies, and I feel like if it was stuck to 5 like everything else, you'd feel like something was snubbed. So it's long enough for this year.
I know you did your homework, Alex, and watched Boyhood last night, so if you want to start with that one.
I mean, sure, I can start with Boyhood. It's literally the only one of the movies of the best film selection that I've seen. I watched it last night, and my I guess expectation of it wasn't too high, even though, I mean, I don't know why, because so many people had told me it was such a great movie and everything, and I guess it just, I was thoroughly happy with it. It was a pretty solid movie, and it does a good job of like imparting that sort of life experience from age, I think it's around age 6 or 7 or something, up until this boy Mason goes to college, and as someone who's maybe not the same age as him, but maybe like 4 years older or something like that, like you feel like a lot of the same experiences that they kind of go through, or the thought process that him and his sister go through as they're growing up, is just, it reflects very much upon like your own life. So for people of our own age, I definitely recommend this movie. It's a great movie, and goes about, I guess, addressing plenty of different struggles that lots of families in America have nowadays. I can finally see now what all of the fuss about Richard Linklater as winning Best Director at the Golden Globes, and how he's expected to win Best Director, probably the Oscars. Well, I can see what that's all about, because it was very well put together, very well done, and I can't really say too many bad things about it.
Yeah, I loved it. I watched it on Rahul's recommendation, telling me it was a must-watch, and we grabbed that from the Red Box, and it was great. I mean, it's cool to see a movie shot, like you mentioned, over 12 years with the same cast, great acting, and, it felt, we kind of said before, it's one of those movies, like, about, like, nothing happens at the same time it tells a great story, if that makes sense. I liked it a lot. One of the things I enjoyed most about Boyhood was also the soundtrack, hearing a song, and the movie really took you back, to like to 2003 to 2006. It made you feel like, wow, that really was a long time ago. Ethan Hawke was great in that too. I was surprised he didn't get a nomination, but there's a lot of quality performances there.
Yeah, no, I probably saw this movie in the most unique situation because it was on a flight, but even in crammed in economy on an international flight, I was able to, just see how great it was. It was really well made, really well thought out, really well executed, especially since something like this has got to be so difficult, picking a 6-year-old kid and having him pan out to be good enough at acting that it works itself out throughout the entire course. What I really liked about it was how unique it was. I'm probably a bit bearish on its ability to be the best picture overall, but as we discuss some of these other categories, like best original screenplay, I think could potentially be the spot for it.
I mean, I definitely think best director. I would definitely peg it for that. I'm with you. Best film. I don't know if it's up for that. Then again, I haven't seen the other nominees.
Well, the only other two I've seen on this are American Sniper and Birdman. Actually, you want to talk Birdman first since you've seen that as well?
Yeah, let's talk Birdman first because I think that's the only movie that we went from 3, now we're down to 2 who have seen it. Right. I guess I'll go first for Birdman. I really liked it. Of the 3 that I've seen, the other one was Grand Budapest Hotel. Birdman was probably my favorite. I liked a lot of things about it, between the story, the acting, the actors in it, the pace, how they presented everything, the way the camera worked, and the kind of using one continuous shot, even though there was definitely time elapses, trying to figure out from an unreliable narrator what's going on. The way the whole thing was pulled together, I thought was really excellent. And of the movies I've seen on this list, it was my favorite, and I would hope that it wins Best Picture.
Yeah, I really liked it a lot too. I was surprised it's not usually the type of movie I'd go to see, but with all the hype for it, I went and checked it out, and I thought Inarritu's directing, like you said, the one continuous shot, it didn't feel gimmicky at all to me. It felt pretty cool and helped tell the story. Ed Norton was spectacular. Michael Keaton, we'll get to him in a second, but I thought he was great. Emma Stone did a great job as his daughter. It was just a really interesting cinematic experience. I'm sure it's one you can enjoy at home too, but it was cool watching this, be like, this is really going on, to not give away certain points. And his interaction with both himself and the audience with Michael Keaton, I thought was great, and kind of hit at him, playing Batman a little bit without being too obvious about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say my favorite part of it was probably the pace. It was just a super frantic movie, which in part makes sense because the base premise of this is that Michael Keaton, his character, played a role similar to Batman earlier in his career, had some success with that, and was trying to reboot everything by creating a Broadway play. And I've never, worked in theater, but I can imagine as you're building up towards the main milestones before opening night, I can imagine it being incredibly frantic too. And I just felt like the whole atmosphere that they created was just really strong. And to kind of compare and contrast it with Boyhood through music and experiences and everything else, really built kind of a nostalgia for, basically my teen years for most of when that was shot. I felt like Birdman just took a premise and really ran with it to just create an overall experience that makes you feel like you're kind of running with something. Like a lot of movies, some of the more okay-made action ones will feel like they're going really fast because they're just trying to cram a lot into one space, whereas this one I felt like was able to do a lot in terms of pacing and timing to make you feel like you were also, stress trying to put on a production with all these other moving pieces in your life.
All right, so on to Grand Budapest.
Sure. And then I guess I'm the only one here who saw Grand Budapest. It's on HBO right now, so I watched that just a few days ago. I'm someone who likes most of the Wes Anderson movies that I've seen, from Royal Tenenbaums and Darjeeling Limited, or whatever that train movie was called. So I get his style. I typically like it, even though it's a bit like choppy or rigid at times in terms of how the characters portray themselves and how the actors have to act in Wes Anderson's world. For this movie specifically, I felt like the story was really strong, really interesting. I felt, though, in kind of the same vein as all of Wes Anderson movies, it was really interesting how he used some cinematographic techniques between the screenshots, between having kind of that older feel with some of the special effects and things seeming like it was a little fake in some ways. I felt was just a nice little touch. But in terms of what I think really goes into a Best Picture and how I kind of compare it to other movies that Wes has made, this, I was kind of surprised that it won Best Drama at the Golden Globes. And while I think it's a fine movie and I think it's perfectly it's completely warranted the nomination, I just think it would be an incredibly weak win for Best Picture this year.
All right, so I guess I'm the only one who saw American Sniper, right?
Right.
I actually, funny story, I ended up seeing that twice. Just two different people. I mean, a lot's been said about it, so it's great. It had an incredible box office opening. I think its first weekend was a record for January. And, Clint Eastwood has really established himself as a great director, but one of my favorite things, too, has been, Bradley Cooper's always been an okay actor, but seeing him go from, the so-called villain of Wedding Crashers to the Joker in The Hangover, and then, seeing him, take a serious turn in Silver Lining Playbook, Oscar-nominated, and I think he should have won. Last year, I think we agreed that he should have won for his supporting role in American Hustle. He's a top-notch actor, and he put this movie... Again, it was directed well, and people around him were fine, but he put this movie on his back, and he really carried it for 2.5 hours. I think he did a great job, and I think it tells a story, about an American hero while at the same time not being propaganda. It told both sides of the story fairly. I really enjoyed it, but again, I'd be surprised to see it over Birdman or Boyhood. To me, those are the two main ones. If I had to give it to one, I'd probably give it to Birdman over Boyhood, but either of those two choices would make me happy. Though I would say I do think it'll go to Boyhood.
You think it will go to Boyhood?
Yeah.
Really?
Best Picture?
Best Picture.
I don't know. I just felt like Boyhood was very... I don't want to say plotless because it's not your traditional movie. It's not and that's obviously the selling point of it. But and it's selling it short, saying that nothing happens for 2 hours. But like Rahul said, it builds that kind of nostalgia that people of our age and our demographic can really identify with, because it is relatively close. The person in question is relatively close to our age and our experiences. But I mean, just the actual for better or for worse, it's the kind of movie that you can jump in at any point and just watch the rest of it and enjoy. And I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing for you or if that's a bad thing. If that's I
understand how you could feel that would make a movie less memorable, though. When I get what you're going for. Yeah,
you're not jumping in halfway through The Departed and without knowing what's going on. And
maybe not. Maybe fuck yourself. So.
You know what I mean, though, right? I mean, that's obviously a movie that's on a different intellectual level and going for a different kind of vibe. But going off of what the Academy is usually done. I just don't think Boyhood
You think it'll be Birdman because they love movies about movies?
Sure.
So the way I think about this, you have three categories. You have Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Screenplay. And the way I feel about this is that the Academy kind of looks at all three of these, and unless there's like a true runaway candidate, it is by and far the best movie of the year, whether it's Return of the King, whether it's Titanic, or whether it's, movies like that just sweep everything. I feel like what they try to do with these categories is parcel them out to the different nominees, which are heavily overlapped across these categories, both traditionally and this year. And we can get into the specifics of these, of at least Best Director in a minute. But the way I think about it, I feel like Best Picture is also one with a great broad appeal.
Right.
Best Director is one that's really well executed and really well made. And then Best Screenplay is this great mixture of, creatively strong, unique, but also just a little bit less accessible to the general public. It's,
right,
of the three, the category that's the least just, I don't want to say prestigious because they're all an honor to win when you win it, but it's just like the least commercially
Viable.
general public.
Commercially driven.
Yeah.
Or commercial friendly.
Yeah, people aren't, or when people discuss a director, they don't talk about all the best screenplays he won. They talk about the best pictures and best directors that they won.
Right.
So I feel like it's their ability to, give something that, a lot of people did like recognition without, kind of alienating the general public who are watching this award show for the big awards.
Right.
That's fair. I mean, we saw it with Argo, too.
Yeah.
A couple years back, winning
Hey,
Best
Argo,
Picture.
fuck yourself.
Look, you got me back. You guys want to say anything more about this category or anything?
Do we want to get... I think we all kind of gave our favorites more or less, so we just
Yeah.
want to make a prediction for this category.
My prediction's still Boyhood.
Do you have a prediction?
I have no prediction.
That's fine.
I can't make one in good
Well,
conscience.
that's fair.
I would say my prediction is... So the issue is I just haven't seen half of these other movies. I want to say Birdman, but I guess I wouldn't be surprised if Imitation Game won, given what I've heard of it.
That was one of the ones that I kind of made a note that I would love to see. I never quite got around to it, but
Yeah, I feel like it has a perfect storm of World War II.
you're always
hit
doing
some-
well with World War
Yeah,
II.
hits some relevant current social issues with Turing being gay. Has a great cast. From what I've heard, is well made. It feels like a nice, perfect storm of everything. Whereas Boyhood, Birdman, Grand Budapest, Whiplash, Selma, they all have their different warts. Whereas I feel like Imitation Game on the surface might just be the most polished product and the most accessible thing to win Best Picture. And from what I've heard from people who've seen it, it is a good film. It's not like it's, it wouldn't be as deserving. And but then, like I said, I haven't seen it, and I can't give as strong of an opinion on it in terms of really liking Birdman versus thinking Grand Budapest wouldn't be my choice to win from, or wouldn't get my vote.
Fair enough. Well, moving on to Best Director, we got, all 5 of these films were, well, actually one, it wasn't, 4 of them were nominated for Best Picture as well. Foxcatcher being the one out, directed by Bennett Miller. I think you and I were both a little underwhelmed by it. I was very excited when I first heard of this because it was supposed to be, career-defining role for Steve Carell, which you're going to add to that when we get to Best Actor. And it was a fine film. I get why it wasn't nominated, and I don't feel like it got snubbed. But I think given the level of hype it had and what it could have been, it was fairly disappointing. But the nominees for this are Bennett Miller for Foxcatcher, Morton Tildum for Imitation Game, Richard Linklater, we talked about him for Boyhood, Alejandro Iñárritu for Birdman, and Wes Anderson for Grand Budapest. So you have anything you want to add about directing Boyhood? Kind of covered it right there.
Pretty much covered it all in the last one.
Yeah. So to kind of talk about Foxcatcher, because we haven't talked about this movie yet. I personally thought that it was okay. Like, I paid and saw the movie in New York City, which is probably the most expensive place to watch a movie in theaters, and I felt like I got my money's worth. I felt like it was an entertaining movie. I enjoyed it for the most part. I thought it was an interesting story. But if I kind of like compare it to some of the other movies that this director has made, so I never saw The Cruise, which was his first one. I saw Capote. I thought that was fantastic. I haven't seen Moneyball all the way through, but one of the criticisms I heard of Miller is that he just takes a story and strips a lot of things away and makes it very bare bones and raw. And you could see it in the performances that everyone was giving. And if I just compare it to how Capote was made, how I felt watching that movie, I just feel like I've seen stronger work from him, and I don't think that Foxcatcher, deserves to win this category. Sanjay, do you want to say anything else?
I completely agree. I think, if there's one thing that stood out for me in that movie that was, a negative as opposed to lack of something, just the directing was very... It could have really been directed by anyone, and I worry how much input he had, like you said, in terms of stripping it down, because the movie just felt like it could be more. For me, again, I haven't seen Imitation Game or Grand Budapest, but I was really impressed by Birdman and Boyhood. I hate to do this in back-to-back categories. The whole one-shot deal was really cool, but I think, that still falls a little more under the cinematography than directing. I'd have to give it to Richard Linklater and Boyhood, just because it was such an incredible thing to watch, and an incredible project to take place again over 12 years to get everything to work, to nail that casting, shots, everything. The way that movie was put together is just outstanding. I think, again, we can split hairs here because of the categories. Birdman for cinematography, but Boyhood for director.
Yeah. I guess it really depends on what the voters take into account when determining who the best director was, because there are a lot of things that do go into being a good director. And just to kind of discuss some of these other movies real quick, with Grand Budapest, I thought a lot of the things that Wes Anderson did were nice, but I feel like I've seen similar things in his other movies, and I don't know if they felt as best director-y to me, though I think it would be nice if he won this award, just, like a kind of unique person to give it to, and kind of a tip to the larger body of work he's made. Though I would have to say, just given everything that went into making Boyhood, I personally think that it should also win Best Director, just because the whole ordeal was very complex, very complicated. It requires a lot to bring people back every single year for several weeks. Just a lot of things going into it, and I feel like he executed it really well, and something that's never been done before.
I was about to make the point, how funny would it be if Boyhood just didn't win anything? 12 years and then nothing. Sorry, that just the troll inside of these things, that would be really funny.
I think this one is more likely, unlike the other one where it's for sure Boyhood. I think this one will probably go for Birdman, but I'm still taking Boyhood as my choice.
Director, definitely Boyhood.
Yeah. Like I said, the way I think about these, picture, I already said, I'll reiterate with director, I feel like they're going to look at the larger body of work and what had to go into it to make Boyhood, and I think that's really going to drive them towards that decision.
All right, so on to Best Actor. We got Steve Carell for Foxcatcher, Bradley Cooper for American Sniper, Benedict Cumberbatch for Imitation Game, Michael Keaton for Birdman, and Eddie Redmayne for Theory of Everything. What?
I feel like Michael Keaton's the front runner. I would not be surprised, though, if the whole wave of popularity from American Sniper somehow. I'm not predicting this, but I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if somehow this huge wave of popularity just somehow gave a late push for Bradley Cooper, and who was it who won last year for
Actor
best
McConaughey.
actor?
Matthew McConaughey for Dallas Buyers.
But Bradley was up for that, right?
Support.
He was up. He was
So
up
Bradley was
supporting
up for
American
supporting.
Hustler, and he was up for best actor for.
Silver Lining was the year before.
Silver Linings was the year before. It was the year before.
Did he win for that?
No.
He lost to Affleck.
Was it no Ben? It wasn't Ben Affleck. I think it was the guy from The Artist.
Oh yeah, he lost to the guy from the.
Oh no, it's Daniel Day-Lewis for Lincoln, and that one really should have been. That really should have been Bradley Cooper's, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
You think him being overdue for one?
I was going to make the point of like
Yeah.
a makeup kind of Oscar because
We see it happen a lot.
Yeah.
he did have that kind of like you said, that decision in his career where he decided I'm going to start taking more serious roles and I mean he's really produced and delivered like big time for a majority of them and just with all the publicity that American Sniper has gotten, selling out movie theaters all around the country, I wouldn't be surprised if he somehow pulled it out with that. But what I'm hearing is that Michael Keaton should win it.
So, of these movies that I've seen, I felt like Carell would be a weak Best Actor winner, just given the performance. It was fine for what it was, but I don't think it's deserving of the award. I feel like I'm also starting all of these very negatively by explaining why Foxcatcher shouldn't win it, but like I said, I like the movie, I just don't think it's Oscar-worthy for a lot of these categories. With Bradley Cooper, I would say last year it was a tie for me between him and Fassbender for Best Supporting Actor, and while I could see them awarding it to him kind of as a makeup call over the last few years, I also think he has the benefit that, just given the premise of this movie, it's a favorable Oscar story, just everything kind of built in, along with the popularity and everything else. I could definitely see this working out for him. Last few, Benedict Cumberbatch, I think he's a fantastic actor. Haven't seen the film, so I can't really comment about how he did in that versus everything else he's done. I feel like Michael Keaton, though, did a really fantastic job in Birdman. Just really well, balancing everything they did. I don't want to spoil any aspects of the movie, because I feel like a lot of those pieces really that would spoil the movie, really drive how strong he was in it. And then finally with Redmayne, my one concern, given who's won acting and actress categories over the last few years, would be given the character that he played, given the human being he played. Stephen Hawking is a person, and just given the physical things that go into it, I'm kind of worried in general that the voters overweight the physical aspects that go into acting, and they might award him with this category like I believe he won at the Globes, just given these aspects that, while are important in terms of preparing for a role and really trying to be someone, at the same time, I just feel like there were a few very strong performances that deserve their own recognition.
Yeah, I think, this is the first one where I feel there's two legitimate snubs. The first one being Jake Gyllenhaal. I thought he did an absolutely incredible job in Nightcrawler. Thank you. In Nightcrawler, he had what was supposed to be the year where Steve Carell had a career-defining performance. That's what Jake Gyllenhaal did. Absolutely made what would have been probably a mediocre film without him into an incredible one. It would have been great to see him get some recognition here. He, without giving him too much away, he'd balance, normal and like a little psychotic in that movie, and somehow made a very unlikable character very compelling. It was great to see him rise to the occasion. I think he definitely, for sure, having seen Foxcatcher, did a better job than Steve Carell. But the other one, and it surprises me I'm saying this, received no award consideration at all, was Channing Tatum in Foxcatcher. And for the character who was on screen the most, or again, like you said, person, since, that's who he is, he played Olympian Mark Schultz, who was a gold medal winner. And that movie, again, was seen mostly through his eyes, though not all the way. It was a performance I couldn't believe out of Channing Tatum, but he was to me, I know we have a slight disagreement. You thought Mark Ruffalo was better. The best actor in that movie, for sure, he outshone Steve Carell. And I'd like to see someone like Channing Tatum, who normally doesn't get considered for this, at least get some recognition. I don't think he stood there with Bradley Cooper or Michael Keaton, but he put in a phenomenal job. As for the guys I do like here, like I said, Bradley Cooper carried American Sniper on screen anyways. And he's been able to reach back, do dark, do serious, be a family guy at the same time. And I think I wasn't too familiar with Chris Kyle's story until I saw the movie and read up, but I really think he did him justice. And for Michael Keaton, again, that was incredible watching him. You're watching that movie, you're like, I'm watching greatness. Like you mentioned, without giving anything away, there's a scene about 85-90% of the way through the movie, which is just like everything comes to a standstill because of how incredible it is, and he just relates something few characters are able to do. It's one of those scenes when you watch, you'll know what I'm talking about if you've seen the movie. But if not, he's great the whole film, but that one scene is just absolutely incredible. As for predictions, I do think he should and will win it.
My vote would go to Keaton. The cynic in me, after last year and the people I wanting to win some of these categories not winning, the cynic in me says Eddie Redmayne, though to kind of split all this, you'd assume that just everything coalescing around Cooper. If I actually had to put money on it, I would probably say that I think it's kind of a perfect storm for him to walk away with this.
Which is what you were saying, too.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, very well might happen. But oh well.
Well, on to Best Actress. I'd like to tell you, I've watched any of these movies.
I've seen Gone Girl.
Oh, well, okay, go ahead.
You guys haven't seen Gone Girl?
Nope. Well, I've been holding off on it because I have a friend who wanted to watch it. So no, this wasn't you, Alex.
Solid movie. The nominee, of course, from Gone Girl is Rosamund Pike. Plays, I guess you could say, the antagonist, but she gives a really creepy performance, and it's creepy in a. Remember what you saw in Glorious Bastards. Remember that feeling of absolute terror you had of Christoph Waltz?
Yes.
How you were just like, that is the most horrific and scary character. Just because he was so smart and you feel like he knew everything and he was one step ahead of everyone else at all times. This exact feeling is what Rosamund Pike's character gave probably to every man who's ever dated any woman before in their life. And so I don't want to give away the entire part of the movie, but it's a truly eerie and creepy performance, but it's entertaining at the same time. Definitely would recommend the movie. I think in other years, Gone Girl probably would have gotten more recognition. This seems like a very stacked year, so it's not completely surprising. And who are the other nominees? The other nominees
we have Marion Cotillard for
Meryl Streep, right?
She's actually in Best Supporting, I believe. So we have her for 2 Days, One Night. Felicity Jones for Theory of Everything. Julianne Moore for Still Alice. And I believe she's the heavy front runner for this. And Reese Witherspoon for Wild. Wild is the one I really wanted to get out to see. Because Reese Witherspoon, she's kind of hit or miss, I feel, in what she's in. Like, she won for, I believe she won for playing June Carter in Walk the Line. So this would be her second award. And I think, from what I've read, she's put in a great performance. Obviously, Julianne Moore is still favored to win. So I'd like to see either of those two win. But these are our 5 great actresses, really.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have not seen any of these performances, so I can't really comment. From a personal standpoint, I probably want to see Reese Witherspoon win, but just given what I understand about the premise of Still Alice, I'd imagine that this is probably Julianne Moore's award to lose.
All right, so moving on to our last two, I guess we're going to cover here is Best Supporting. We have Robert Duvall in The Judge, Ethan Hawke in Boyhood. I said he didn't get nominated earlier. My bad. Ed Norton in Birdman, Mark Ruffalo in Foxcatcher, and J.K. Simmons in Whiplash.
I guess I can start. So of these, I really, really enjoyed Edward Norton's performance in Birdman and Mark Ruffalo's performance in Foxcatcher. I'd personally like to see Ruffalo come away with the win just because I feel like he was the best actor in that movie. Comparing him to what you were saying about Channing Tatum earlier, Sanjay, I just feel like Tatum and Carell maybe could have had performances that felt better as a viewer. Had a different director than Miller controlled that movie, it could have also turned out worse, because I don't want to take anything away from how talented Miller is, but I feel like that those two could have been, between Tatum and Carell, could have been utilized better. But from watching it, I just felt like I really enjoyed Ruffalo's performance. I really enjoyed his portrayal of the older brother, and I don't know, I would personally like to see him win, but you can go into this in much more detail. It sounds like J.K. Simmons is the favorite.
Yeah, of the four, I saw 4 of the 5 movies, and Whiplash sadly being the one I didn't. I really wish we had a better selection of movies here around where I live. I have a theater that has 24 screens, and not one of them showed Whiplash since it's been out. But the other 4 were solid. I was surprised a little by Robert Duvall. I thought he did a good job in The Judge, but nothing groundbreaking, much less for him. But Ethan Hawke was great. I enjoyed his performance in Boyhood. I like Mark Ruffalo in Foxcatcher. Ed Norton stood out to me a lot in Birdman. He stole the show when needed to without going overboard. He had one of those typical supporting actor type roles where his character's a little over the top, but he didn't play it to ridiculousness. He played it the right way. That being said, and I can't believe I'm going to say something that's stupid, even from the trailers and Whiplash, J.K. Simmons' performance is so convincing. He's the favorite for a reason.
Right. One thing I can say about Ethan Hawke's character in Boyhood, he plays, if any of you guys haven't seen it, he plays the father
Mason Sr.
of the boy in question, who basically her parents are divorced, and he comes and he visits the kids every now and then, every 2 weeks, I think they say, or 3 weeks or something like that. And at the beginning of the movie, he's very much portrayed as sort of the dad who left home and kind of just abandoned his kids and abandoned the mom and everything. And he's very much portrayed in a sort of screw up kind of light. It's sitting there watching it. Didn't really give much thought to it, and it's a feel good character in that it starts off where you're kind of annoyed at this father who's sort of walked out in their family and everything and gone off to live his own life, and then just strolls back into the boy and his daughter's life and gives them presents and takes them bowling and does all this fun stuff with them and everything. And they make all this,
bro.
Yeah, well, whatever.
I'm kidding.
Yeah,
he does all this fun stuff with them. So you're kind of like, well, what the hell, man? This woman is there working her ass off trying to feed and clothe these kids and everything, and you're just strolling in once every 2 weeks, playing the superhero. But what starts out as you sort of feeling this kind of angst and annoyance towards this character is he sort of gets his life together, builds a family of his own, and while at all points never really losing his sort of paternal touch with his kids. And it's a really good. It's just a really good, feel good character. somewhat like in my mind, like this actually speaks to most of Boyhood, or Boyhood as a whole. But there's so much closure in the movie that you kind of like. It kind of happens, and you're left sitting there thinking, "What's going to go wrong? Something's going to go wrong."
Yeah, I can relate to. I got that feeling
after
as well.
seeing so many like Oscar-nominated movies and like these major movies that sort of, I guess, I mean, you're never guaranteed like feeling good at the end of any of these movies. So
Right.
that's the power of some of them. They make you really feel or question the subject. But this movie kind of just had you sitting there feeling like, oh, that was nice, like that was good. And I feel like Ethan Hawke's character is really like sort of the what's the word I'm looking for? Not the incarnation. I guess the incarnation, where he's the epitome of that feel good sort of successful character. And,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
not to me something that's best supporting actor worthy, but still like a nice
Well done.
performance overall.
Yeah, and it's incredible to put that in, like you said, over 12 years too. You know, and keep coming back, play the same character. To add to it real quick, because I know you want to say something else, Rahul. I mean, that was another cool thing about Boyhood, right? Like, it's not just, Mason Jr. who we see grow up. We see a whole family grow up and change around him, too.
Yeah, I mean, if this movie had come out, say, 4 or 5 years ago, and we were in the situation where we were basically the same age as the protagonist, I feel like I would have walked away from this movie and from Ethan Hawke's performance in a very different point of view. Whereas when you see it at the beginning of the movie, and he is, as Alex mentioned, borderline absentee father. He's around when he can be, trying to kind of do right by his kids while also juggling all this other stuff. I feel like I'm at the age now where it starts kind of tilting in the other direction, and you can kind of feel for Ethan Hawke in some ways because, any of the three of us were a few terrible decisions 7-8 years ago from, basically being in his situation where you don't know what you're doing, you have these kids running around, and you don't have your life together, and you just don't know what to do. And, we can talk about Patricia Arquette's performance and her character in the next category because she was also nominated. But just kind of seeing over the 12 years, not only these two kids grow up, but also seeing Ethan Hawke's character slowly get everything together and slowly become like an actual good father, in some ways is really feel good. But I guess in other ways also kind of has this weird aspect hanging over the boy and his sister where you're basically helping your dad be a great parent to your half sibling because he really never was for you.
Right.
So, I guess last one here, Best Supporting Actress. So, like you said, with Boyhood, we have Patricia Arquette, Laura Dern in Wild, Keira Knightley in Imitation Game, Emma Stone in Birdman, and Meryl Streep, who is always nominated for everything in Into the Woods.
It wouldn't be the Oscars without Meryl Streep.
That's absolutely true. You guys want to take point? Or?
Sanjay, you go first with Into the Woods.
All right, so what a fucking miserable movie that was.
I haven't even seen it, but I know it's not that bad. It's definitely not that bad.
It's probably not as bad.
You're just a miserable person.
I mean, I like musicals, so I was surprised.
I mean, it
I don't
got
like this.
greenlit and has good actors. Like, so either there was like a clear,
It was
just misstep by many
Yes.
people, or you're a hater.
I think my problem
the latter.
probably 10% on the first and 90% on the latter. I will gleefully hate on anything I minorly don't enjoy. That being said, like you said, the casting was actually pretty good. Directing, could have gone either way, but it wasn't. I definitely wouldn't say it's bad. I guess my fault with the movie lies mostly with the source material. I just didn't think it was a great musical, nor one I would enjoy on stage either. I didn't find, most musicals, you want the songs to be catchy, memorable, you want to go see Les Mis and annoy people with the songs for weeks afterwards or whatnot, or people with Frozen. That's a movie I have no interest in seeing, but everyone fucking loves Let It Go. And just there's no songs, there's no songs irritating me when I left or nothing. I was just mad that I spent 2 hours 45 minutes on Christmas watching this piece of shit.
Went on Christmas?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's a
Wow.
Jessica family tradition. Year before we saw Wolf of Wall Street, so
Okay.
That's a very different Christmas.
that was a very different Christmas movie. Year before that, we actually did see Les Mis. So, I mean, Meryl Streep was fine. She always is. She's never bad. But I don't think she did her best work in this. She had one scene where she had a tough job, like communicating with Rapunzel's character in the movie, because she's singing, and yet she was still able to convey so much emotion while carrying out, the choreography and whatnot, and it wasn't, spoken word. That was a really nice scene. I don't think one scene should win you an award. So
One for Anthony Hopkins.
that this this is true. It did win him a Best Lead Actor. But I thought Emma Stone was great in Birdman. It was, to me, her finest job yet. But I still think it'll go to Patricia Arquette because of the undertaking that Boyhood was, because she was almost a lead actress in a sense of that movie. She carried a lot of that on her back. You see her be successful, have failure, be in a good marriage, be in a bad one, and really you can see the care she has for the kid. I'm sure, and we all know politics play into this thing, or else Leo would have tons of Oscars.
Oh my God.
But she, I'm sure it helps her case that, she took time out. She was the busiest cast member, and she had to leave, was it CSI Medium that she's on every year to make sure to get time to film this.
Okay, I feel like we're overstating the amount of time that the actors took. They did 2 weeks once a year for 12 years.
Yeah, they
Sure.
just did
It's about the length of a normal filming of a movie, just spread out over.
Understood.
12
It's
years.
more the inconvenience of breaking with the schedule to fit everyone in, and that's more like you
Sure,
said. That's
breaking
more on
the
the director
schedule sucks,
and casting to get everyone together than the actors themselves.
But if you know that you're about to launch into this 12-year endeavor, that there was obviously plans to do this every 2 years. It's not that they just
Right.
called you called you from a secret phone or something and said,
it's time.
meet us at a field in Iowa. We're filming this weekend. Go.
That's The Bachelor.
So, I would hate it if they gave an Oscar or multiple Oscars to Boyhood and it's different actors and actresses just because it took 12 years to make it. That's not
No, you're right.
not
That's a
a
fair
reason
point.
to give them
That's a
the-
fair
the
point,
point.
but I did find her performance to be still the best of the three I saw.
I didn't. Well, I haven't seen the other ones.
I get your point. You didn't come away feeling the same way that it was Academy worthy.
I didn't really feel that way about any of them, though.
Yeah.
I liked the movie. Feel-good movie, nice movie. Not, Oscar-winning, when it came to the acting.
Right, I understand.
The acting was all just kind of
I think I understand what you mean. It kind of felt like all the actors were almost a vehicle to push the movie forward. These are things that are happening in this person's life, and it didn't feel. I almost felt at times that some of the performances were a little disconnected, and maybe it's just because it was filmed over a long period of time. Maybe it's because doing something this choppily, not every scene is going to be at the same type of feel and same type of level as if you shoot something all the way through. So I can kind of see some of the criticisms that you have with the movie, but I guess I just have a few things to kind of say about Patricia Arquette's role and how she portrayed it. I also think she's going to win, and I think it's for a few reasons, even beyond just the way Boyhood was shot. I feel just given the role she had, really being the only adult in that movie, given the fact that I'd assume everyone voting in this movie has a mother. I know everyone's
I don't
life.
know, man.
Well,
Old Republican men could be pretty nasty people.
Yeah.
They may not have mothers.
Yeah, but when you watch this movie, there are ups and downs in everyone's lives, but it's probably hers where you feel kind of the most sympathy at times, and the way she was able to take Patricia Arquette was able to take these really difficult situations that her character was facing and just do a really fantastic job portraying them. I feel like that whole package kind of gets put together, and I feel like will get her enough votes to kind of put her over the top beyond just her own strong performance. And then just one quick thing about Emma Stone. I agree with you, Sanjay. This was a really good performance by her. Oscar-worthy? Probably not, but maybe we'll see. Hopefully for her, this isn't a one-time type of movie, and maybe she can have a similar type of mix like Jennifer Lawrence, where there is some commercially successful, some good comedies, but also some good serious movies that get that are more challenging acting roles and that get some of this recognition across different awards channels.
All right. Is there any other awards you guys want to talk about? I'm good.
I guess the only other one that we mentioned earlier was Best Original Screenplay, and I feel like this really would be the one for Birdman or Grand Budapest to walk away with.
I feel since I really don't have much to add on that front, one thing that surprised me, I didn't really catch either of you guys' feelings on this. You guys see Interstellar? Mm-hmm. I'm surprised by, the lack of love for it. I thought it was a pretty great movie. It wasn't Matthew McConaughey's best work, because nothing will be after Dallas Buyers, but to see him also not even get consideration, really, and Steve Carell to get that nomination is another one that actually surprises me. He had a lot of really emotional scenes in that, and I thought it was incredibly well directed. Thought it was a great film, a great story. I think it got some love in the sound departments, maybe. For Hans Zimmer,
flipping through it, it's got some sound, it's got production design, visual effects. So people saw it and saw that it was visually well made. I'm just guessing between Chastain, McConaughey, Hathaway, you have all these people that are very accomplished, and this wasn't any of their best works. So it's pretty easy to kind of look at it for all of them and just, not even bother with a nomination in order to make sure that other people who are coming out with movies where it's, pretty up there for them in terms of what they've put out into the world over the last few years. It's kind of the opposite of the Meryl Streep nomination every single year. So rather than giving these guys, recognition for continuously putting out good work, it's a way to, give other people the opportunity to maybe come out with a win after the voters watch all their screeners.
Interstellar.
I have not seen Interstellar, and honestly, I completely forgot that this was the year it would be eligible to be up for Oscars, and this is kind of a good way to segue into a slight little tangent that I had just about the Oscars overall and the state of movies in America and around the world. And I brought this up with you before, but I think just this year especially, and we've seen more of a progression towards this over the past couple of years, but there just seems to be a glut of movies and you can tell by all the snubs that you can talk about this year. You can bring up multiple different snubs that easily in other years could have had nominations or maybe even contended for winning. But there seems to be way too many movies that are taking themselves either too seriously or are just blatantly fishing and hoping for an Oscar. We haven't even talked about movies that were movies like Unstoppable, that was directed by Angelina Jolie. It was based off of the award-winning book. And it was a movie that a lot of people were really, really looking forward to and were pegging as an Oscar hopeful and everything. Except it just turned out to be 2 hours of pain and anxiety, and then it ended. and you were sad. That was the movie, and it seems like people are trying to figure out what's the formula to win an Oscar, and they're trying to put it on a screen and trying to make money off of the resulting media and commercial hullabaloo that follows any of these movies. Like Boyhood and Birdman have obviously been raved about ever since the Golden Globes, when before they weren't really achieving that much commercial success.
Yeah.
But in the time between the Golden Globes and the Oscars, people have been cramming in to watch these movies and see what all the fuss is about for these movies that are up for Oscars and have won Golden Globes. So I just wish there wouldn't be a certain and strict formula to winning an Oscar. And you know what? We need more movies like A Wolf of Wall Street.
Yes.
A movie like The Wolf of Wall Street, it obviously it took itself seriously in a sense, but at no point. But that was just a good fun ride the entire time, as long as you were okay with the rampant sex, drugs, and all that stuff. But I mean,
The Departed is another one I feel like we agree with. Was a fun ride, took itself somewhat seriously, but allowed itself to have fun, and was both a quality film, not a formula fit. And it won Best Picture and Best Director finally for Scorsese. Another one that I'm actually a little slightly more biased on, but was the year Return of the King, Clean House, I think in 2004 Oscars, 11 years ago. And that was another, fun film. Like, even though, again, it took itself seriously as the adaptation it was, yet allowed for comic relief, was enjoyable if it ran a little long. And it wasn't, like you've been pointing out, some of these like films that are almost intentionally dry to make a point, to bring out certain performances and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have two things to say. One, looking at a few of the movies that were nominated, I mean, I don't feel like Wes Anderson typically makes his movies to try and win these awards. I think he just makes the movies the way he makes them.
And they're more conducive to...
They might be a little bit more conducive to going after these, but it's the same way that the Coen brothers movies are a bit more conducive to going after these. But, like, a director who has his style, has his universe, basically, Tarantino is conducive to winning these.
But he hasn't won anything.
He hasn't won, but Django has been recognized with nominations. Pulp Fiction has been recognized with nominations. I was going to say more along the vein of, like, Michael Bay has his...
Well,
no,
sure.
he has his style. He has his formula, too. It doesn't go to win these, but they have their... You know what I mean? Like, they have their artistic touch, and, some of them might kind of be pushing this direction, but... I don't think it's as overt as, say, the Angelina Jolie movie this year, that Monuments Men movie last year,
right,
where you kind of look at it and you're like, okay, this is like gunning for an Oscar. Yeah. I mean, some movies come out where you think the performance is probably gunning for an Oscar, like Still Alice or Wild. But I usually like to give people the benefit of the doubt, especially if it's a quality film and a quality performance. And I usually only like to chastise them when it really wasn't that great. And you kind of wonder why, like, why was this made? Why did you choose this role? And the only thing you can really come up with is like, you were trying to get an award rather than to, like, really try and tell a story or, like, make something interesting. And I have a pretty good theory as to why I think this is kind of the case. If you look, say, over the last few years versus like 15, 20 years ago, the movies that are made, it really feels like now there are basically two types of movies being made. There's the, huge blockbuster type movies. I'm sure you guys have seen the Disney Marvel calendar over the next 5 years.
I'm so excited.
It's exciting. Like, a lot of these movies seem like they're good, but if you look at all these major studios, they're basically like, okay, we have to crank out these, like, giant movies that between, production and marketing cost like $500 million, and we have to kind of churn these movies out. And I feel like that's one part of the bookend because basically they're super viable internationally because it's just a bunch of action. It doesn't matter what language it's in, and people go watch it because these are really recognizable characters. And you have a mix. Some of them, like the Batmans, are really well made and fantastic movies on their own, and you have others that start to get a bit more dicey.
That's not Marvel.
No, that's DC. But I get your point.
It is DC, but it's the same idea of like you have strong source material that everyone recognizes, a lot of action.
I don't really agree. I feel like this is getting into a different argument, but when it comes to Marvel, they've done their homework pretty well, where they've cast very well, and
this wasn't calling out Marvel in general. It's all these movies.
All of the superhero movies, but I mean,
just all superhero action. Like there are a lot of swings and a lot of misses too. John Carter was a miss. Jack and the Beanstalk was a miss. Lone Ranger was a miss.
Those
aren't
the same superhero movies. Those, when you say Lone Ranger you have to think of like Green Lantern as a movie that missed. That was bad. That was terrible. Obviously,
but it's not just superhero movies. It's these movies with source material that people are familiar with that are big budget movies. Like Marvel's the easy one to pick on because they have a calendar set out over the next so many years. We're coming with this and this and this and this, and we're creating this world and everything else. And that's like trillions of dollars of investment by Disney when you finally see like how much they've spent between production and marketing over the course of that time. And the goal really is to make like, you know, billions of dollars globally for every single movie.
You know what the catalyst for that was? Iron Man. Iron Man literally started all of that when they found that the mix of explosion and action and a witty and likable actor in Robert Downey Jr. With that right mix, you could have an absolute blockbuster. Well, obviously, that's not going for any Oscars or anything like that, but
I know.
So, but now they're just trying to get like everyone is just trying to jump on the train of okay, if we cast Ben Affleck as Batman, now everyone will see our movie. We'll make tons of money. Like,
I agree with that. It's more of a broader point of like this is kind of one bookend of movies in terms of we make a massive investment and we try to churn something out that you can watch in Chinese, you can watch in Russian. Like the language doesn't matter as much because like if you watch Avengers, like there's plenty of dialogue, but like a lot of the movie is just visually appealing.
Right.
And then on the other bookend, you basically have these movies where the actors and directors are really driving something that they feel is like super duper meaningful. Their budgets do vary, though they're kind of on like that low mid end where they don't cost a ton of money. And the way the studio, and it's not as internationally viable because it really needs to be in English in order to get the full effect. So when the studios churn these movies out, it's basically if we can get that Oscar buzz and this can be recognized as like a really high quality film, then we can make our money back. You know, all that type of stuff. And you kind of miss that middle ground that used to really exist with movies that cost a bit more than those, but much less than these big blockbusters that kind of, you know, feel entertaining, aren't really gunning for one of those two aspects. I just feel like that set of movies is getting lost in the shuffle because it lacks that international viability, and it's not like a few actors can really just push something over the edge to be thought of as like really artistically great.
Well, I mean, like going off what you're saying, I know this is really easy to say, but you know, I think that's why I feel like I love that middle ground so much. Like, you know, like seeing a movie from Clint Eastwood, you know, like $1 Million Baby or American Sniper now. Who doesn't love a good Scorsese film? Like you said, Wolf of Wall Street, Departed, Goodfellas. Even The Aviator, which took itself a little more seriously, was still a great film. Who else am I thinking? Christopher Nolan, of course. Like, especially, I think the Batman films were such a great example of that. And Inception, too, though it didn't get as much recognition, or Interstellar. But, like, you know, films that, you know, were still, you know, not just, like, you know, it didn't feel tedious to watch. Even if you're watching something good, you can be like, you know, I'm watching it because it's good. These were truly entertaining films that were also well made. And I think, you know, the films that are made with the most care can take, you know, like, both, like, the best of both sides. Like, a compelling story, like you said, Iron Man's not necessarily a contender, but we saw it with Lord of the Rings. We saw it now with...
Was Downey nominated for Iron Man?
No.
No.
But
That was
never-
Tropic Thunder.
Tropic Thunder he was.
He was nominated for Tropic Thunder?
for playing Kirk Lazarus, playing Osiris, yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, Lord of the Rings is a great example. Batman. One that I thought should have gotten more attention, and you might be surprised hearing this, is the Hunger Games trilogy. Or I guess they split it into 4 films now. Obviously, it helps when you have Jennifer Lawrence, but that's a hell of a performance from her. They conveyed, the sense of urgency that she feels. Everything she's under, it does an incredible job. That was so well cast, especially second film now when you have Philip Seymour Hoffman, Donald Sutherland, Woody Harrelson, who did a great job. I would like to see that get some recognition, and saying, this is fine. You don't have to be just gunning for artistic. If you make a film really well, it can be art. It can still get a nomination. I thought, especially the second one was Catching Fire, actually deserved some attention. You can even see now with the Divergent trilogy, that's not a film that is or should get Oscar attention necessarily, but they were shooting for making the film well and not just doing things half-assed. Like Shailene Woodley, who I'll get to in our actors list, she should have been at least in fringe consideration for what she was able to do with not exactly the best written role to get such a performance out of it. So things like that. I don't think just because something's like a Harry Potter film or an Iron Man, I'd like to see some of these films do so well in Oscar nomination. One more before we finally actually do move from this. You guys catch Snowpiercer?
No.
I was surprised to not see that get any love either. I thought it was well directed, and I thought Chris Evans put in the performance of his life too. If you guys haven't seen that, catch that on Netflix. But you guys want to move on to other things since we're talking about things we like, our favorite actors list?
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
You can dive into that if you want.
All right, so we put together some, I guess not necessarily power rankings, but since we're talking about movies, people we enjoy seeing in films. Do you want to take the lead on
Yeah,
it?
sure. We talked about doing a top 5.
A fave 5 for both actors and actresses.
Yeah. I guess for me, I think I'm pretty sure we all had Leonardo DiCaprio in our top 5. Didn't we?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, Leo's pretty fantastic. I mean, I'll let Sanjay talk about him because he's you're obviously your true love. So I'll let you take him later. But yeah, I had Leo on there just because of his basically the word that sums up all of these actors and actresses for me was diversity. I love an actor and actress who I can sit down on a Friday night and watch, realistically see them pulling off a role in a rom-com or pulling off a role in a comedy, pulling off a role in a very, very serious sort of Academy Award-winning movie. Just diversity is the key for me. And the actor that really sums that up for, I guess, the past 15 years, ever since he burst onto the scene in Boogie Nights, was Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg, for me, I think he doesn't get enough credit. He's had a few very, very serious roles here and there, in The Fighter, played a bit part role in The Departed and was very good. And you've seen him pull off hilarious roles in Ted and the Other Guys, where the relationship he has with, I guess, the real comedic geniuses like Seth MacFarlane and Will Ferrell, he holds his own in that form with doing those types of roles. He's proven to be a great producer and director while working on what's the name of the Entourage. That's it, the HBO series Entourage. So they've just finished up creating the movie for Entourage.
Can't wait.
Which I'm really, really looking forward to. So Mark Wahlberg was a name that instantly came to mind. After him, I had Michael Fassbender, who, if you guys having trouble putting a name to a face, he, I guess most people will recognize him first from Inglourious Bastards. He plays one of the translator that
Archie Fuck-Ups?
Yeah. Who fucks up and reveals to the Germans that they're actually
not German.
Not German, yeah. He's also the robot in Prometheus. That's that's a role that I think really showed a very good kind of diversity, because it's a very, very cold and kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of held back role.
Reserved.
While reserved. Yeah, reserved is a good word for it. It's not an easy character to play, playing a cold robot who has no feelings and just does things according to protocol, but he pulls it off really well. And throughout the movie, you sometimes find yourself thinking to yourself, like, is he the bad guy? Like, you don't really like his character that much. And was he nominated for 12 Years a Slave?
He was, and I know you hated that.
So we can either get off into this tangent or we don't have to, but after I watched 12 Years a Slave, I firmly believed that he should have won Best Supporting Actor, just given the performance he gave, and unless he's the biggest racist in the world, probably how bad you have to feel doing the things he did while portraying that character. It's just, I felt like he gave a much more powerful performance than Jared Leto did. But Jared Leto was, playing a transgendered woman who had AIDS and was super skinny, and all those factors kind of come together to, I guess, in some people's minds, create a more difficult role to play, even though I felt like at the end of the day, Fassbender was just so powerful. Like, you watch that movie and you hate him. Like, he's one of the worst human beings ever when you watch that movie, but that's how it was. Like, that's just how it was. And, like, I think the criticism people gave for 12 Years a Slave was that, it bums me out, or, like, this isn't a fun movie to watch or anything like that. But, I wasn't around during that time period, but I'd imagine that, it was an accurate enough portrayal, and if you are an American, it is an important film to see, like, how bad it probably was. And I'm guessing it was probably worse than some of the stuff that they showed, just because they wouldn't have been allowed in theaters if they portrayed everything to the fullest that it was back then.
Yeah, so like I said, when it comes to Michael Fassbender, I don't really have any examples of sort of off the beaten path role from those very serious roles for him. I'm not sure if that's in his future. I don't know if that's in the cards for him. If he tries, whatever, I'll go see it. He's the kind of actor that if I see he's headlining a movie, or if he's even one of a few headliners in a movie, I am automatically interested, because I know it's going to be a very well done and well put together movie with characters who usually get to see themselves fully developed. So I've really enjoyed his work these past 4 or 5 years since I've seen him.
One quick thing to add, even though I'm not, I think we discussed this before, I don't really enjoy his work as much as you do, but I do think he's a great actor. And like Shame, in that one he did with Carey Mulligan, that's another kind of movie where I'm like, I didn't really enjoy seeing the film. At the same time, he did a job that very few people could do. He absolutely tore it up for that.
All right. Next, after Fassbender, DiCaprio, and Wahlberg, is for me James McAvoy. Again, if you can't put a name to a face, more recently and more commercially, he's done the newer X-Men movies. He's played the young Professor X.
So you basically just like the two main characters from the new X-Men movies.
Yeah, no. That's why I actually really love those movies, because it has two of my favorite actors in them, and I think they did an excellent job of casting those two men in particular as playing the younger versions of themselves. And obviously, I can't really think of too many times that people in Hollywood miss on that kind of casting. So I'm obviously overplaying this, but I thought they were excellently cast for those two roles. James McAvoy is more serious side. You saw him in The Last King of Scotland. I'm pretty sure he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. I know Forrest Whitaker won the Best Actor award for that, but James McAvoy's role in that was also like very powerful. There was also a movie, I think it was called Nostalgia. I can't remember the name of it. Not promising that I can't remember the name of it, but whatever. Very, very diverse actor. I would love to see him in something other than these these thrillers and movies that take themselves kind of seriously, but whatever. I'm looking forward to it.
4 or 5?
And then finally, my last one is, I think we can all agree, I don't know if you guys have him in your top 5, but Will Smith has always been one of my favorite actors. Very diverse. Can be one of your leads in your summer blockbuster like Independence Day, or he can direct his own movie, and like The Pursuit of Happiness was a very, very good movie that I know a lot of, I don't know if it won any or was nominated for any Oscars.
He was nominated.
But I mean, absolutely like supremely talented actor. Stars in one of my favorite romantic comedies, Hitch. It seems like a great guy. Funny.
Seems like one of the most likable guys, genuinely.
Yeah, exactly. Funny, smart, talented, like rapper and everything. Great guy. So he was another guy that like instantly came to mind as soon as you talked about favorite actors.
Okay, well, I guess I'll go ahead with my list. We'll finish with actors and come back to actresses to wrap it up. At number 1, I had Leonardo DiCaprio. I think we all know how big of a fan I am.
Go ahead.
And we've had. No, I'll try and keep it. We've had Alex try and.
We'll try and keep it to 30 minutes.
Yeah, wrap it up when I try to have him as Bond. For real though, the guy has.
Is this going to start with Growing Pains, or
no? We won't reach back that far. But the guy has done, like you said, diversity. He's done everything. He's done Gilbert Grape. He made Romeo and Juliet a passable torturous movie. You know, that was like, you know, the remake. Oh, it was a shitty movie, but he made it a fun time. You know, we saw him in Titanic, Aviator, Departed, now Wolf of Wall Street. So many incredible roles. Blood Diamond, even Shutter Island. I think, you know, with someone else, that's not really that great of a movie either. Though him and Scorsese, that's a winning combination. Always. Like you said, he just does everything. Inception. I could name movies all day that he's done. Even The Beach wasn't complete ass. So I think he's overdue for an Oscar. Again, that could be its own podcast, but he's easily my favorite. I'm more surprised than myself when I made this list and I finally ranked people. I had at number 2 Matthew McConaughey, something I couldn't have said, you know, even 3-4 years ago. But I love seeing people, you know, like finally like reach their potential and stuff, whether it's like sports or acting or whatnot. And seeing him in Mud, getting a nomination there, then getting the Oscar win for Dallas Buyers Club. This one's almost cheating now, but for what he did in True Detective was really phenomenal. Seeing him cross over to TV and really make that series the most watched show on HBO now, which is kind of crazy. And then coming back with Interstellar, which, like I said, I thought, you know, deserved nomination consideration. He's gone from just, you know, like the goofy guy in a romantic comedy. He's shown he can do that, and he's great in those, to doing serious stuff. Another guy in a kind of similar like career transformation at number 3, I got Bradley Cooper. We've talked him up a lot already. American Sniper, American Hustle, and Silver Lining Playbook, 3 straight Oscar-nominated films. He's been doing a great job. Again, we saw him, you know, be almost a throwaway guy in Wedding Crashers, and that whole film, you know, Owen Wilson, Vince Vaughn, Christopher Walken, Rachel McAdams even, he has the biggest career of everyone now, and there's not really a role that I could see him, you know, not doing. So I've really enjoyed anything that has Bradley Cooper on it. Like you said, with James McAvoy is automatically at least interesting to me. Another guy, most people on this list I've noticed are, you know, the top 3 are fairly a little bit younger. Tom Hanks. What can't Tom Hanks do?
Forgot about Tom Hanks. I love Tom Hanks.
Great, right? Even now,
there's a snake in my boots.
It's funny because he's the voice of Woody in Toy Story, and those 3 things, you know. Animated movies, the voice acting matters more than you would think, you know.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. But he's so relatable. Him and going backwards, and Captain Phillips in with first 2 back-to-back wins in Philadelphia and
Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump, thank you.
Jenny.
Who yeah.
Laugh
Like,
like
who-
a box
who do you-
of chocolates.
Who does anyone like
Forrest
more than
Gump, there would
Forrest?
be no I Am Sam.
Yeah. So, and that was
There would
Sean
be,
Penn can thank him.
I am Sam, yeah.
Forrest Gump is tremendous. That's one of those movies you see on and like just drop everything and watch the rest of it as long as it's hopefully
Sunday
not on
night or Sunday afternoon on TNT.
TBS.
movie.
Yep, Turner. Either way.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks is great. Even like even when he's on SNL, the guy is a complete scene stealer. You don't get to see his comedic side that often. But Catch Me If You Can, that was another great
He's
one.
really funny.
You want to do the joke?
Guy.
Knock knock.
Who's there?
Go fuck yourself. So, Tom Hanks, love seeing him in anything. And number 5, it was a close call for me, but I took George Clooney. He's another guy. I was not really too much into his stuff, doing like comedic stuff. When he's taken himself somewhat seriously, and like we said, we like to see people do that, but not too over the top. I feel like that's where he went with Good Night and Good Luck, which wasn't an enjoyable film for me. But seeing him in Syriana, in The Descendants, in Gravity, he's just a guy who, with his name attached, I'll definitely go see that. He even made Ides of March, I think, with him, and I think it was Ryan Gosling, a passable film as well. That's something with someone else in that role. It's kind of awful. One guy I left off, I had him as my honorable mention, which is kind of cheating, but I wanted to give him some recognition, is Channing Tatum, who I talked up earlier, because seeing him now carry on the serious burden of playing Mark Schultz in Foxcatcher, which I thought he was phenomenal in, and on the other side, we know how funny he is in the Jump Street series, which is some of the funniest movies I've ever seen. He's just someone, whatever he does, I look forward to, as long as it's not another one of those step-up films.
No, step-up movies were great. You shut up.
Yeah.
Rahul, who's in your
Go.
top
So
five?
let me go through my list. I didn't have these guys in any particular
Yeah, neither
order,
did I.
so
Sanjay said
let me
that.
just first go through the guys that everyone had. I have Leonardo DiCaprio. I have Bradley Cooper. I had Matthew McConaughey, who I've been big on since Dazed and Confused, which might be my favorite movie ever. So that's kind of like a weird
I haven't seen
realization
it.
to have. I would recommend.
Is it a
everyone
rom-com?
watch
What is it?
It's like a high school stoner movie.
Oh, I'll love it.
Yeah, no, it's on Comedy Central all the time. It would
Is
come
it
on
like-
TV and I
is
would
it
just
like
drop everything.
Half-Baked?
No,
Nothing
it's
is
like
as half-baked.
it's like the last day of school. You have the 8th graders becoming freshmen and the juniors becoming seniors. Has a good mix of hazing, pot, drinking, like just general teenage angst mixed with like kind of like when I was younger it was like, is this what high school is going to be like? And now it's more like, this was like the fun part of high school, is just driving around, hanging out, like no real direction, like just figuring stuff out as it comes.
That was the start of All Right, right?
Yeah, that's the start of All Right.
All right, all right, all right.
That's the start of the best part about freshman girls is each year I get older and they just stay the same age.
It's a very Vin thing.
Yeah. What are some other lines? Like, hey kid, you got a joint? Well, you'd be pretty cool if you did. Like, it's just. I also loved him in Tropic Thunder. He's a great. He's a fantastic Asian. He knew that Ben Stiller needed TiVo, and he brought the TiVo to the jungle.
Yeah.
I think you're underselling Tom Cruise in that.
Tom Cruise was also fantastic in that.
Hilarious.
I guess we've talked about Bradley Cooper. Plenty of talk about Leonardo DiCaprio, though. I think we're downplaying his growing pains contributions.
Sucks.
But to get to the two people that I had that you guys didn't have, first I'll go with Christian Bale.
Another good one.
Who has been in a lot of great movies. He was in Machinist, and then he jumped from that to Batman, which probably should have killed him, going from like 50 pounds underweight to like probably roided up.
Right.
But beyond that, he was also in Fighter.
Won an Oscar for that.
Yeah, he's just been in a lot of great movies that I've really enjoyed. And usually when he's in something, I try to look and go see it. And the thesis I had with my list, because just based on this discussion we're having, the way that I thought about it was kind of twofold. One, I want an actor where if I find out he's in something, I get really excited and like hyped to see it. Like, I want to, go to the theater, relatively soon after it comes out and see it in person. Not only to get the full experience, but also to like do that full like monetary support, like power of the purse, like
Not download a car.
yeah.
So basically, the opposite of every Adam Sandler movie.
Oh
Ever.
yes. Well, I mean, like,
I mean, I've seen
kidding.
some of those on TV, so they get that ad revenue.
Yeah, sure.
You see some of that. And the other part of it was also I want that actor to like be in films that I feel are like really strong and really meaningful. So like for example, that cut off a lot of TV people. It cut off a lot of comedians who I do, when I see that they're in something, I do get excited and I do try to go and see it. But it's just an easy way to kind of streamline the whole process, though there are plenty of people that kind of get lost in the shuffle there. And then the last person I had on my list was Mark Ruffalo, which was probably a weak one compared to a lot of people that you guys had, but given the films he's in, from Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind to being the Hulk in Avengers.
13 going on 30, classic.
It was a classic. I did enjoy it. Sanjay knows I do have a slight affinity for rom-coms. I feel like he's just been in a lot of great roles, and I even went out and saw the movie he did with Keira Knightley last year, Begin Again. I'm sure if there was any other actor outside of Ruffalo, I wouldn't have had any desire to see a movie that was like surprisingly entertaining. My honorable mention is Joaquin Phoenix. Sanjay's not a fan. He's like visibly vomiting right now.
Phoenix.
I think he just went to the hospital for choking on his own vomit. There was just so much.
It's everywhere.
But I don't know. He was great in Gladiator. I liked him in Her. I thought he did a great job with what he was given in The Master. I just thought overall speaking of The Master, rest in peace, Philip Seymour Hoffman is also a great honorable mention. I feel like those two just, had a lot of great roles, were able to transcend, different moods in different movies, and, both just barely missed the list.
A couple of people I'm surprised, you don't mind me covering, that didn't make any of our lists.
Yeah, go
One guy I'm sure would have been on this list a couple of years ago, even Denzel Washington. I know you put in a scathing review of him in The Equalizer that kind of damaged his stock a little bit.
Actually, yeah, he probably would have been on my list if, the whole diversity thing kind of kills him for me. He's pretty one-dimensional.
These days. Earlier he was doing better stuff, going Malcolm X, going Family Guy. Training Day was a great one.
But Training Day is the same kind of role of the sort of...
Equalizer, just that he's kind of technically the good guy now?
Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
Training Day is... I don't know, it's hard because...
Yeah, so my take on Denzel's a very similar take I have on Will Smith. Had we done this poll 5-6 years ago, 5-6 years ago, I think both those guys would have been on my list. Right. But that recency bias of the last so many things that these guys have made really haven't been that great. Kind of like tilts them the other way. Whereas 5 years ago, no way any of us would even think about Bradley Cooper.
Absolutely, that's
whereas
true. Yeah.
Very true.
Just the things that he's come out with just have been really strong. So, if you completely strip away recency bias and just look at a whole, book of work, yeah, I think easily Will Smith would be on my list and Bradley Cooper would be out.
That's absolutely crazy what you said about Bradley Cooper 5 years ago. Like, I'm just blown away right now thinking back what I would have thought 5 years ago.
Yeah, 5 years
Yeah,
ago.
you
Just come out with The Hangover.
If you tell me
Yeah.
that that's one of the best actors in the world, I would flip my shit on you.
Yeah,
Yeah, you make a good point.
Whereas, like, now the combination of some mediocre films from Smith, along with the fact that his children should probably go to real school and be taught about the world. If you've seen that in it, like, it's just that whole package of, like, you're close but you fall off, and I feel like it's the same thing with Denzel of, you just had enough mediocre movies recently that you.
He's been nominated for. He was nominated for Flight a year or two
Yeah,
ago,
he
wasn't
was.
he?
Yeah, but you know what? That wasn't a classic Denzel performance. I felt more as a weak field. Granted, he's another guy I think kept that movie alive. Someone else, and it would have been just a miserable film to watch.
I thought it was great
Yeah.
in it, but you kind of sandwich that between like Book of Eli and Equalizer.
Exactly. That's
awesome
another bad
mix.
one.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, recency bias. That's why that's part of the reason I'm sure none of us consider Jack Nicholson, Robert De Niro. Like their best work is
Yeah.
behind them. We're taking we kind of took it like power rankings a little bit too in terms of like who is going on now, so to speak. Like where they're at the current point in the career.
Right. Like I'm sure none of
Yeah.
us had Judi Dench in our
Right.
actresses or Meryl Streep or anyone.
Another one was I was surprised none of us put Robert Downey Jr. I think we all like his work, but nothing.
What else has he done other than?
Well, Tropic Thunder was great.
He had that movie with like The Mirrors or something.
I don't know.
There you go. None of us saw
Drawing a
it.
blank, yeah.
He is Iron Man. He's
Iron Man, and
to me.
that was the rare Marvel film I enjoyed.
That was, I think, Marvel's best film, and it saved the entire franchise.
I mean,
saved everything.
Without him, Avengers would have probably been a mediocre movie.
Absolutely.
One of the great things about him is like he has the whole like sarcastic personality, but you still completely love the guy for it.
But I guess my issue with it is that I don't see him in other movies and get excited. I have to go see this.
Well,
I agree.
One guy I used to feel that way about, and I don't anymore, is also Ben Stiller. I used to like his work a lot more, and now I think he's trying to take himself too seriously as well.
He was fine in Greenberg, but then again, that just might be my
Your kind of film.
My kind of film. And what's her face? What's her name? Look her up.
Greta Gerwig.
Yeah, and I might.
What's her name?
Greta Gerwig.
Greta Gerwig. Okay, yeah, no, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, and I saw that after Frances Ha, so I was on like a Greta Gerwig more enjoyment than probably I should have gotten out of that movie.
I mean, I guess we'll move on to actresses, and that'll be the honest end of this podcast. You want to go first again, or you want me to?
Sure, because I've got mine all up right now.
Do we all have Scarlett Johansson on our list?
I actually don't.
No, I don't have
Oh,
one.
okay.
I didn't realize that this was hottest actresses.
Oh, no,
I'm trying to take them on their acting merits here.
Then I get to talk about her, and you get to see that I actually watched
and I get to
movies.
look at Google images of her. Okay, great.
Scarlett Johansson, Black Widow. Enter.
Yeah. My top actresses, again, I went with the whole diversity theme. I really enjoy actresses that people don't just like for like their great looks or something like that. They're actually pretty solid actresses. You could see them in your Oscar-nominated movie, or you could see them in your laugh out loud comedy on a Friday night. So the first one I went with was Amy Adams, who's recently she's only really started, I guess, taking more serious roles recently. She was nominated for American Hustle. She was in The Fighter a couple of years ago.
Was she also nominated for her?
I don't believe she was nominated for her.
She was in Catch Me If You Can. A lot of people.
She was in Catch Me If You Can. That was very early in her career, back in like 2002. But then she's even drifted over to that superhero movie when she did Superman. She played Lois Lane in the Superman movie, and she's shown that she can be a sort of, I guess she can hold her own in a comedy. I don't know if you guys ever saw Enchanted back in like 2007.
Love it's right up there on the bookshelf.
Yeah. Enchanted, I think, is one of the most underrated comedies of like the last like 10 years. Like people, I don't know though. Her
and Patrick Dempsey cracked me the hell up.
Right,
Yeah.
they were hilarious in that movie. My second actress was Sandra Bullock. I mean, she doesn't really fill that
comedic role.
No, she
was in Miss Congeniality, which I
Miss
enjoyed.
Congeniality is always going to be a very, very solid rom-com that will hold up for like the next 10 or 15 years or something like that. More recently, she did that movie The Heat with what's her name?
Melissa McCarthy.
I didn't see it. I'm not a big Melissa McCarthy fan. She's in rom-coms like The Proposal with Ryan Reynolds. I mean, that's like something you could throw on.
Yeah,
you could throw that on TBS and like people.
I was feeling more Comedy Central FX on that one. But
really? No, FX I could see, but
yeah, we should have another pod one day. What makes a TNT movie?
What makes a TNT movie?
Versus an FX.
But then she comes out and she kills it with Gravity last year. So
that was amazing. Yeah.
So I mean, The Blind Side for everything that people kind of mocked it and criticized it for. She
won an Oscar. Yeah.
Yeah, she did a pretty solid role in that movie also. So she's kind of filled that diversity role also.
While we're there, since I promised this to be non-sports, how about Michael Oher getting released 2 days ago?
He got released?
Yeah.
Oh my god, I did not see that.
They did draft his replacement immediately after signing him, so...
Right, okay. All right, sorry, we promised we wouldn't talk about sports. Another one I had on there, I don't know if you guys might have had her, was Emma Stone.
No, she just missed my list. That's
really?
a great pick, yeah.
I love Emma Stone. Emma Stone, I feel like would be the coolest person you just like hang out with for an afternoon.
Yeah, I get that feeling. I've liked a lot of stuff she did now. Is it Easy A, Crazy Stupid Love?
Oh yeah,
Spider-Man, Birdman.
Honestly, a lot of these girls are probably more conducive to like the rom-com kind of roles, or like I feel like they could pull those off pretty easily, but then they could surprise you and come out with a very, very, or a lot more, a bit of a serious role every now and then, but that's not what their bread and butter is.
I mean, if you look at the typical Best Actress nominations in the Oscars, it always feels a little weaker than Best Actor, and I feel like
they're not writing strong female roles for so many people.
Yeah, but there are plenty of like rom-com roles to have, so if you just need to do work to feed your kids, because $20 million is not enough to feed kids 10 years ago. It's definitely not enough today.
Pretty well. Now we have our second.
So you probably do a ton of these rom-coms because you are a good, diverse actress.
Next, I had Emily Blunt, who
she was the shining star of Into the Woods for me.
Right. She's done Into the Woods. Edge of Tomorrow, I thought was an excellent action movie last year. I thought it'd be. I'm not a huge Tom Cruise fan, so I was kind of hesitant about seeing that. But when I saw it, she made that movie for me. She was excellent in Edge of Tomorrow. Then she pulls off the whole rom-com thing with movies like The 5-Year Engagement. I don't know if you saw that. That was with Jason Segel. Very solid movie. She did The Devil Wears Prada also. And then she got an Oscar nomination for Best Actress in Salmon Fishing in the Yemen last year. So, I mean, like I said, again, she's a very, very diverse actress, and also someone I would love to just hang out with. And finally, I don't know if you guys had her, but Kate Winslet.
No, then that's an excellent selection.
Love Kate Winslet. Kate Winslet she's smart, funny. Literally, I don't understand why she doesn't do more work. It sounds kind of bad, but
I feel like maybe more select.
She must be a very, very selective person, because everything she does it just feels very well thought out, and it's always a good product, no matter what it's going.
Eternal Sunshine.
Right.
That's another one.
Yeah, so if I had to cast one actress to win Best Oscar in my upcoming movie, then I would probably go with Kate Winslet, hands down.
She's your Game 7 pick.
Yeah, she's my Game 7 closer. Who did you have in your top five?
So speaking of Kate Winslet, it kind of transitions well. I was talking about this a little bit earlier, but I was surprised. I didn't know about the casting too much going in. Seeing Divergent, seeing her in that movie, because it took it from just an adaptation, kind of like a cash-in. So I took it a lot more seriously, seeing her play one of the main roles in what was basically a young adult novel.
Right.
But why did I go see Divergent, you ask? I'm probably not the target demographic for that. It had my favorite actress, Shailene Woodley, who I had at number one.
Really?
Yeah,
Shailene Woodley.
Yeah, I'm a big fan, and I think ignoring like Secret Life of the American Teenager, I don't think anyone's like gonna talk it up as a TV show, which she was on. So she was great in The Descendants. I think she should have been nominated for that. She was great in Spectacular Now, another one where I think she should have been nominated. And her and Miles Teller were incredible on screen together. And they carried that to Divergent, where they weren't, playing off each other necessarily, but had a few good scenes. Now, White Bird in a Blizzard, she was incredible in. Still have yet to see The Fault in Our Stars. Unfortunately, I had that one spoiled for me. Anything she's in has become really entertaining for me. I think she does the thing well where she's both a relatable person, but yet has like a presence about her on screen that makes it entertaining. She does the dramatic well and still is always good for a few laughs. So I'm excited to see what kind of movies she'll be doing next. Well, so second on my list is someone. It's somewhat similar, but with a much better body of work and admittedly a better actress. I just enjoy seeing Shailene Woodley more. Jennifer Lawrence. She already has. She already has an Oscar win. She has an Oscar win under her belt. Granted, I haven't seen any of the X-Men films, but like I said again, I'm impressed by anyone who can turn a young adult novel, and it's gonna sound like this is what I go out and watch. That's the crazy thing. Divergent I saw on my own. Hunger Games I was dragged to, but she for Catching Fire really, even for the first one, deserved an Oscar nomination. Obviously in Silver Lining Playbook she was phenomenal. Her and Bradley Cooper both, and we were able to take them both as people who couldn't deal with each other as a couple. They were great. Now American Hustle was another great one that she did. Anything she does is great. Again, she has a sense of like both being real and still making you laugh, but taking a role totally serious. Her versus the science of it in American Hustle was one of my favorite fights of 2013. At 3, I put Jessica Chastain between with Interstellar and Zero Dark 30. That was a movie I did not enjoy at all, except for her, and that's I think that does unfortunately fall a little bit under that Oscar bait title where her role was, but she played it very well. Interstellar especially. She played a character we see growing up, and then she has to take those same characteristics, but apply them in a timeline forward. So I'd like to see her do a few more comedies, but I think she's one of the best actresses there are right now. And actually, this is a revision I'm making to my list, but as I look at it, I kind of have 4 and 5. I feel like Alex is not going to be the biggest fan of these, but I have Anna Kendrick and Anne Hathaway in the 4 or 5 spot. I don't know which one.
Whatever, man. It's your
my
list. I'm not going to get angry at you for you having your list.
Obviously, who doesn't love Pitch Perfect?
I agree.
Exactly. Thank you.
But I'm in an acapella group. Of course, I love Pitch Perfect. I just don't love Anna Kendrick. Leave me alone.
Wasn't you think she looks like a velociraptor?
She looks like a velociraptor. I'm sorry.
But
she smiles.
Up in the Air with her and George Clooney. One I didn't mention for him. That was such an incredible performance. One that she was Oscar nominated for. And of course, Anne Hathaway already has her Oscar for Les Mis, but she was incredible in Brokeback Mountain, in Love and Other Drugs. She made Princess Diaries not torture to watch. Anything she does, again, she has the serious role down pat. She can do funny like in Get Smart. So I really look forward to pretty much anything Anne Hathaway does. Even Devil Wears Prada was actually not a bad film. You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
The one, I think it's called One Day, with her and Jim Sturgis. That shit was terrible. But I think that was just a poor film. By no means was I like, wow, Anne Hathaway's bad in this. It's more like I wish she weren't associated with this movie. Oh.
So, again, my list is very much of who do I think is strong, who do I think, when I hear that they're in a movie, do I, feel the need to go either learn more about it or run out and see it. To give, I guess, the only name that I think I had overlap with you guys on was Amy Adams.
Yeah.
And I think it was, pretty clearly run through why she deserves to be on this list. So I'll just flip through some of these other names. One of them is Natalie Portman, who maybe at this point is grandfathered in from great work from a while ago, just because I can't really think of much she's done post Black Swan that feels really strong. But between that and the Star Wars first 3 movies and a few others in there, I feel like she definitely deserves to be on the list. After her, again, this is in no order. I had Reese Witherspoon. No, between the Legally Blonde movies and Walk the Line, I felt like there was that strong diversity of roles. And Wild has been on my list of movies to see. I just need to stop being lazy and just go out and see it. Next on my list, I had Jennifer Lawrence. So I guess we had 2 overlaps, and enough has been said about her. If only any of us had seen Winter's Bone, and we could also, comment on that and how it fits in with her broader work.
I haven't seen that.
No, that was Peter Jackson. It's just funny. Rahul mentioned that we all should have been able to say something about them. We didn't.
Winter's Bone sounds like the sequel to Christmas Lust.
Oh my god.
Let's work on the first one first, and then we'll get to Winter's Bone.
Yeah, and then last on my list, I had Scarlett Johansson. Traditionally she's thought of more so for her looks, but I've just seen her in a lot of different. Yeah, she's okay. She's like a solid 5 out of 10 if you ask me. No, like going kind of in reverse order of movies that have come out of hers that I've seen. I thought she did a great job in Don John. I thought she and Penelope Cruz and
Vicky Cristina Barcelona.
Yeah, and Vicky Cristina Barcelona. I thought it was fantastic. I thought she did a great job. I thought Lucy was entertaining for what it was. I thought she did a great job in The Avengers and in Her, given the constructs of those roles. And finally, probably my favorite role that she was in was
The Perfect Score.
Was Lost in Translation. Just the character she played, her interactions with Bill Murray. I just thought it was my favorite role that she was in, and movies she's in the future, I'm excited to see her in other roles, and that's really the crux of how she made my list. Even though in terms of accolades and everything else, I think she was relatively on the weaker end compared to a lot of the people on your guys' other lists. Though I could, who knows, if we look back, maybe you could argue she got a snub for Lost in Translation, lacking some nomination.
Anyone else you guys feel like you left off your list, or you wanted to squeeze in if you could? Or?
I probably should have put Jennifer Lawrence in there, because I do like Jennifer Lawrence, but I figured that someone else would, so...
Anne Hathaway just missed my list, but...
She didn't miss mine.
Lizzie Kaplan just got cut off mine.
What else has she been in other than Mean Girls, Freaks and Geeks, and
Masters of Sex? She was just in The Interview now.
That's what I meant, The Interview.
She's great in Masters of Sex, but for me, I just wouldn't put someone in
for mostly TV.
For mostly TV, because then my actor list gets all jumbled, and it's just easier to create some hard and fast roles.
Ava Green, I wanted to add.
What's she in?
She's now, I have no clue. She was just in the new 300 whatever remake sequel crap thing.
Okay.
Sin City remake sequel crap thing.
She was great. Wouldn't want in a Bond girl.
She was great in Skyfall, Casino Royale. You didn't like her?
She wasn't. She was awful.
Oh,
Sorry, she's everything you don't want in a Bond girl, and they made her a Bond girl.
I wanted to throw Emma Watson in there, but Rahul ended that when I realized I've only seen her in the 8 Harry Potter movies.
She hasn't done anything.
I mean, yeah.
And
Daniel Radcliffe probably deserves some consideration for Best Actor stuff, because he's actually really
he's putting together a serious career.
Yeah.
He's very, very serious actor.
On my list was that movie he came out with.
Frankenstein
last
one?
year. No, the one where he like falls in love with his best friend's girlfriend or something.
Haven't seen it.
Sounds
Very generic. So yeah, thanks again for listening to our special edition Oscars pod. Thanks to Rahul for coming on and being our guest and everything. Listen out for the next ones.
Yeah, and it's 3:16. So if there's anything you want to say,
316, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and that's the bottom line. Because Stone Cold said so.
No one's gonna get that
Yeah.
reference.